It was a big news day in the world of open wheel racing, both domestic and foreign, both good and not so much. So let's come inside the Scrutineering room and let's talk all about it. What's up, everybody? David Lawrence here. Glad you're along for the ride. Let's examine some big headlines on this Monday. If you're watching this is Monday night, February 5th. I'm recording this. So we're going to go ahead, jump right into everything. Let's start on the homeland. Let's talk Indycar. First and foremost, some good news today. If you are a fan of the 100 Days to Indy docuseries that was on the CW in 2023, good news, Penske Entertainment, the producers of the show, Penske Entertainment, of course, under the Penske umbrella, and also the owners of Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar series itself, they announced today that they will produce a second season of the show. Excellent news, by the way. If you were not watching last year, 100 Days to Indy is essentially a docuseries. The scenes, basically, they'll follow the series from the opening races of the season, St. Pete, if I'm not mistaken. So the film crews will be there next month when the season kicks off, and they'll follow them all the way up to the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. And they'll do 8 to 10 episodes. That's what they did last year. The series is set to debut in April. No specific date in April was given. However, there is going to be one big change. If you remember, Vice Media was a very big part of season 1. According to Racer.com, no Vice will be involved in this second season, and there will be an announcement in the coming days of more channels of distribution for the show. Quick thought on that one. Personally, there was a lot of worry that this series would not come back, it wouldn't be renewed, but fortunately for all of us, the show will come back. It is, in my opinion, it was a great docuseries, and IndyCar trying to getting to that streaming success that Formula One has seen with Drive to Survive. NASCAR hitting some pretty big numbers with Full Speed. By the way, if you have not, I did a whole video on that one, so please go to my playlist and check that out. Please and thank you in advance. But to see IndyCar really taking that leap and trying to do something that will put them more in the public eye. CW readily available in every major market, so hopefully that will definitely help the numbers, but definitely a great opportunity for IndyCar. But I will say this, I think the key this time, they really are going to have to get a really good secondary distribution partner. Vice was good, but they're really going to have to hit this out of the park if they really want to see some bigger numbers for this series in 2024. Again, the series will be back for season 2. Haven't given an exact date yet, but you will see a season premiere during the month of April, and that'll be on your local CW affiliate. That was the good from IndyCar today. Now let's talk about something that's got some fans very startled and triggered right now. Nathan Brown of the Indianapolis Star released an article earlier today about IndyCar trying to go into a revamped membership system, something akin to NASCAR's charter system. Won't quite be like that, but it'll be pretty much along those lines. This will look to go into effect, according to Mark Miles, and according to Nathan Brown. Mark Miles spoke that it could go into effect around 2025 or 2026, so at least it will not go into effect for this year. The biggest piece of that quote-unquote membership system will be guaranteed spots in every IndyCar race, which includes the Indianapolis 500. However, Nathan is very quick to remind us that this is not anything new, that Roger Penske actually did mention this in 2019, that when he did step up to get the series, he did mention that We got to protect our assets, and that is something that's going to have to be done. Immediately, fans went back to 1996, the Tony George's lovely 25-8 rule that he implemented, actually 1995 when he came out with it, but don't be too specific on me. But fans went back to 1995, 1996, 1997 when they had the 25-8 rule for the 500, when Tony George had to, quote-unquote, protect his teams for the IRL. And fans not very happy about that. Again, I will get to that a little bit more in my take on the situation. But according to Nathan, we're looking at approximately 22 to 25. It'll kind of be a spin-off of what Indycar has now. If you're not familiar with Indycar, they have a leader circle program. Series gives the teams about $1 million every year to make sure they can get to every race. Of course, sponsorship makes up the bevy of the rest of the budgets, but they do that to kind of give teams the enticement to keep going into the series. However, at this moment, there's only 22. Would that 22 carry over, or will that come to 25? One interesting, I did read Nathan's article. One thing Nathan said, renowned IndyCar owner Chip Ganassi was quoted. He said, quote, that when the rule came out, that was political. This time it's merely about survival. So with that being said, I'm going to go right into it, and I'm going to give you guys two sides of the coin. The first one is the fan side that I have. I get where fans are absolutely triggered by the thought of a car guaranteeing the Indy 500, because we've been racing this race 108 years. This race's tradition, it's always been the fastest 33. You wouldn't have moments like Kyle Kaiser getting Ricardo Juncos' little team into the Indy 500 over Fernando Alonso and McLaren, of all people, back in 2019. Graham Rahal missing the 500 at the time wouldn't have been as big of a story if you still have that. Is there the possibility of that? Yes. Yes. And I'll say what I said on Twitter X earlier today. I said, honestly, you lose a lot of the luster and appeal to qualifying when you guarantee spots. The Daytona 500 is a very good case in point in that. Granted, yes, you still have a few spots and you still have teams, but think about it. It's not the 1980s, it's not the 1990s when you had 50, 60 cars going down to Daytona for that long week and a half with a hope and a prayer and a dream of making the 500. And remember, those were in the days when nobody was guaranteed anything. This was way before the charter system. But here, and yes, while that does appeal, and like I said, that takes a lot of the appeal out of it when you know, like, hey, people are guaranteed spots into this. It's like, it's null and void. And I was at New Smyrna talking to a couple of fellow fans. We were sitting around during the late model qualifying, and they mentioned that to me. It's not the same as it was 30 years ago. However, allow me to give you guys the flip of the coin with an owner's perspective. From Roger Penske's standpoint, I get it. I mentioned Chip Ganassi a moment ago saying this is about the survival of the series. Mike Shank was quoted in there saying, if you see the revenue sheets that he does, then you may think a little differently about how you go about thinking about the system. And this is also coming out of Nathan's article, and I definitely agree with this. The Indianapolis 500 sometimes makes or breaks teams, and the one example Indycar fans may forget about is Trevor Carlin. Yeah, as in Carlin Motorsport, the famous feeder team that came over to the States to try IndyCar back in the end of the 2010s. If you recall, Trevor had 3 cars to go out and qualify to go out and attempt to make the 500 in 2019. Only one of them made it. It was so devastating to the team. If you remember, the team didn't return in 2020 for full-time capacity. By 2022, Carlin was off the grid. And you can even go a little bit further. Rodin, the New Zealand automotive juggernaut, recently completed their purchase of Trevor Carlin's stake in his team. Technically, the Carlin we know of doesn't exist anymore. A lot of that can spawn back to not making the Indy 500 field just because of how much money is wrapped in to that one race. And even and another owner, if I want to say it might have been Roger himself, but was quoted as saying, "I get tradition, but at the end of the day, I have men that work for me, and they need to make sure they get paid." I know we all love IndyCar. I know we want to still see IndyCar around. We know it's the best racing out there. Some of the best. I think it's, sorry F1, I do think it's better. I'm going to be objectively me in this show. It's my show after all. But I also have to say, at the end of the day, I get it. If you want sponsors around, they want to make sure their money's is return on investment. They want to make sure their money's going to a good place. There's a reason Roger is where he is. There's a reason Chip Ganassi is where he is. There's a reason Rick Hendrick is where he is. There's a reason Justin Marks is where he is. These guys are businessmen. They've been there. They've done that. And this is not your grandma and grandpa's NASCAR or IndyCar anymore. I hate to say it like that. And yes, things were different. We love that for the sake for sport. It's awesome because Bob Varsha said this Sunday night with Speed City Broadcasting. Shout out to those guys. If you do not follow them, please give them a follow on social media here on YouTube and on Twitter and X. Those guys do the Sirius XM pre and post race shows for Formula One, which we'll get into in a minute. But Bob on the show last Sunday said this about sport. Sport is, it's not sport if it's not sport if you didn't have to earn it. And I might have butchered the line a little bit. But essentially what he's saying is, if it's guaranteed, then there's no point in it. And again, I fully get it. However, I also understand. And remember, there's still a little bit of the element to it, but when you do that, we've seen how it becomes close shop. Yeah, the sport still survives and it still thrives, but it's going to be nowhere near the numbers it used to be once upon a time. And I hate to say it, I would love to see in my time 50, 60 cars come to Indy in May for a shot at the field of 33. I would love to see it. Absolutely. Without a doubt. No question. But do I feel we will see those days again? As much as my heart would love to say yes, my head, knowing what we know, is saying probably not. So again, I get both sides of the equation. We want to make sure we have the best out there, but we also have to have a sport to be able to watch at the end of the day. So that's the IndyCar half of this show. Like I said, some good news, not bad, but some not so welcoming news if you are on the fan side. So with that being said, now that we've covered the home front, let's go abroad. Let's talk Formula One now. Want to catch us up on some livery launches. With all due respect, y'all, let's just call it what it is. These are not car launches; they're livery launches because we don't see the real car. But enough of my little mini rant. On we go. 3 cars have been unveiled so far for this upcoming F1 season. Let's start with Haas. Their VF24 was unveiled on Friday. A little bit of a different look for the car this year. It's going to be a lot more black than there is white on it. However, it's still a pretty clean look. If I do say so myself, you'll see it on the screen right here. Not too much. Like I said, this looks more like a show car. I don't think it looks more like a show car, not necessarily the real VF24, I don't think. But we will see. But things do look a little bleak. I was trying to dress it up, but I couldn't. During the launch on Friday, we did get a little word from new team principal Ayu Kamatsu. And unfortunately, he's going in. Unfortunately, we're getting a glimpse that he may be a little bit of Gunther in the realm of reality. Pessimistic, not most optimistic of folks. Ayo basically, and I'm going to paraphrase this to the nth degree, we're going to be pretty behind in Bahrain. We'll be at the back of the pack. Oh, if you're a Haas fan, not quite the message you wanted to hear. But he did say things were rough as far as the development program on the VF24 did go. So we will see how Haas goes as far as developing the car this season plays out. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be good news for Haas fans at all. Reason being, there hasn't been a lot of development with Haas the last few years anyway. So yeah, there's not going to be a lot of optimism there's not going to be a lot of optimism with Haas this season when it comes to that. So, sorry to brush them off, Haas, but I hate to say it, you guys are slowly becoming the new minority of Formula One. The modern day minority. Just embrace it, fellas. Still love you guys, but yeah, y'all are now the modern day minority. So, Haas is now unveiled. Now let's get to the 2 debutantes that took place today, February 5th. Those would be Williams and Steak Kick F1. I know, that is a brain teaser. Bear with me. I'll come back to that one in a sec. But let's start with the easy one. Let's start with Williams. Williams unveiled their livery for their 2024 Challenger, the FW46, and they did it in, of all places, the Puma flagship store on 5th Avenue in Lower Manhattan in New York City. Boy, you gotta love progress. Got a nice blue livery here for the Williams FW46. A nice little bit of touch of red and white for the Union Jack. But some very big announcements. You'll see on the side pods, Japanese industrial giant Komatsu announced today as a partner for the 2024 season. While not on the car, a pretty big announcement because personally I like to shop Puma. I've been getting very big on their motorsport merchandise. If you have not done Puma Motorsport, you're missing out. I think you're in for a treat. But with that being said, Williams announcing a partnership with Puma Motorsport. Puma Puma merchandise is on the way. Puma, please make it affordable. Yeah, I definitely like this move, and if the Ferrari, Mercedes, and I have a feeling that relationship may be on the rocks. Hopefully not. But if the Ferrari, BMW, and Mercedes merch was anything to go by, I think we're in for a real treat. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see how they play out this Williams fashion line. By the way, Puma not the only clothing brand to feature their wear. Hollister also has a little line of Williams apparel. Most of it, interestingly, features the old Red 5 Nigel Mansell's 1992 title-winning car. There is a few other pieces out there, but most of it kind of centers around that legendary FW14B from 92. So if you are near a Hollister, go inside, give them a look. I think you'll be pretty impressed with what you see. Last but not least, let's talk about Stake F1 Team Kick. Yeah, I know this is gonna be a headache all year long, but let's talk about the team formerly known as Sauber, soon to be Audi. So the Stake C44 was unveiled, and you're gonna love this one. I think it's actually a pretty sporty color scheme of black and fluo racing green. Their words, not mine. The team says that the C44 will be an aggressive redesign of the car, and it's the first Sauber car that is going to be influenced by longtime F1 designer James Key. Key recently worked for McLaren, but now has come over to Saudi, basically as a warm-up and as a prepper for the Audi project. A lot of people, myself included, have been very pokey with the color choice of this car. Of the team for this year, Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu were unveiled in their race suits for 2024, and unfortunately, like I said, and I won't say unfortunately, but we fans on social media got a real kick out of that. Yours truly going as far as saying, please welcome the drivers for Stake F1, Shigo and Buttercup. If you are a childhood fan, you know where I'm coming from with that. But come on, you cannot tell me with those driver suits they don't look like Shigo from Kim Possible. You gotta love it. Put them side by side, hilarious. And trust, and don't take my word for it, go to X, you will find plenty of examples. Even Will Buxton went as far as saying Buttercup drives for Stake F1 Team Kick. But oh boy, hey, you gotta love his F1 fans, right? So that's pretty much launches up to date. 2 more launches scheduled for this week. Wednesday, February 7th, we have Alpine debuting their A524. I might have gotten that wrong. Yep, I did get it right. Will debut their A524. They'll also debut their hypercar, Alpine returning to the World Endurance Championship in 2024. By the way, some guy named Mick Schumacher will be part of that team, so look forward to seeing Mick, Pierre, Esteban, and friends on Wednesday when Alpine does their big unveiling of their 2 cars this year. And Thursday, February 8th, we'll have the other team that just boggles your mind. Visa Cash App Race is I'm sorry, I can't say this with a serious face. Oh boy. Visa Cash App RB Racing. Hashtag they are still AlphaTauri to me. But they will be unveiling their car in Las Vegas on Thursday, February 8th. So interesting to see what this beauty will look like. And I'll probably come back after they do their launches on Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll probably do a show Thursday night or Friday. So stay tuned for that one. So now you're up to speed with the car launches. Unfortunately, I'm gonna end this show on some kind of, I won't say dark, but some not so pretty news, and it involves one of the biggest names in Formula One. If you have not heard by now, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner is the subject of an independent investigation by Red Bull Racing's parent company, Red Bull GmbH. So, just to make sure we got this perfectly clear, this is from the main company, the parent company behind Red Bull Racing. So this is the big Red Bull, as in the energy drink provider, so on and so forth. Basically, Christian is being investigated for allegations of inappropriate behavior. There have been no specifications behind everything, but Chris Metlin, who writes Formula One for Racer.com, please check him out if you have not seen his writing, reported, according to Dutch media, the investigation centers around one unnamed individual in particular with multiple allegations. So we will see what comes of that. By the way, it is stated that while Horner is investigated, he will remain in place as team principal. Now, the next piece of information, this has not been I will say up front, this has not been confirmed by any credible news source. There is some stuff going around Twitter, X, whatever, that the allegations are serious enough that there are people asking Horner to step aside and resign from his post. I will say this. First off, because it has not came from a credible source yet, and that has not even been tipped by anybody credible, I'm not even going to feed into that piece. I probably didn't do myself a service by mentioning it here, but because it is put out there just for the sake of making sure I'm transparent and everything. But I did mention here. However, I will reiterate, a credible news source has yet to confirm that is actually possibly in the equation. Like I said, Red Bull, it has quoted today they are taking anything and everything seriously, and I give credit to Red Bull for stepping in and saying that, hey, we're not going to take this line down. This is something that we have to look at. I've never heard of anything, but of course, hearsay is evidence unless you're actually in the paddock. But haven't heard anything of this sort come from Christian in the past. Here's the reason. I will say this from my standpoint. Here's the reason why I don't think there's much grain of salt to that resign rumor. And that is because there is, just for the moment, one individual. If more stuff comes out in the coming days, and if there are more allegations that arise, then, and only then, will I possibly entertain the thought of Christian possibly stepping away. But right now, I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. Christian's been there literally from day one. find a team principal that has managed to head a team for 20 years through the ups, downs, good and bad. You are very hard pressed to find somebody that is as reliable as Christian Horner. Is he a lightning rod? By all means, yes. But then again, name a team principal that's not. There's a short list of that, by the way. But they're really, I won't say that where there's smoke, there's fire, but this is going to be something that a lot of people will keep an eye on. Some will say this is just some late preseason, this is just some late off-season news, boring news day stuff, similar to the Wolves back in December, if you remember that little mini fiasco surrounding possible stuff between Mercedes and the FIA and all that jazz, which really mounted to nothing and went nowhere quick. You have to, when it comes to allegations, when it comes to inappropriate behavior, not just in Formula One, not just in racing, but in any state, we need to take that lightly. We need to take it seriously. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think, like you all that are F1 fans, I think this is something that will definitely be chronicled pretty big in the days ahead. But with this being more of a quote-unquote internal investigation, my head says Christian will get a slap on the wrist, but I feel like it won't be more than that. It's really going to have to take some really, really, really serious allegations, and they got to be really thick for Christian to step down. And if that does become a possibility, that'll be a bridge we'll cross when we get there. That'll be a whole nother episode. But with that being said, that'll wrap up this episode. If you like the topic we've seen tonight, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. How do you feel about Indy possibly going back to guaranteed spots for the 500? What do you guys think of the new F1 liveries? Are you a motorsports fan? What would you like to see on this channel? I've been very vocal. I said I want to cover everything from not just NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, WEC. I mentioned the Alpine LMDH hypercar coming out. So I think that'll be something really interesting to cover. What about the lesser known sports? MotoGP, motorcycle racing is going to be something pretty good that I want to give a shot. Thinking about going down to Daytona for the 200 if something else doesn't shift. But I definitely want to, and even in the sim racing realm, this is a for motorsport show. And I'm not limiting myself just to one motorsport, but to a little bit of everything. Case in point, if you've been on my channel before, you've seen the Brody Kostecki video from last week. And I may have a follow-up on that when we do get some new stuff coming out on that. So stay tuned for the latest from the land down under. But again, let me know what you guys think. Leave comments, like, subscribe. Stay tuned because I'm telling you, I got some big plans. I'm not ready to announce them yet, but I will in due course. And I think it's going to be a very big launch from what I've done in the past, at least with these last couple of shows. So with that being said, that's all I have for you guys for this episode. Thank you guys for coming inside the Scrutineering room. I'm David Lawrence. We'll see you guys next time. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much in advance for commenting. Please know I read everything. I appreciate it. Even if it's just a few views, you got to start somewhere. So again, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. And remember, don't forget your smile at home. You look much better when you have it. So long, everyone.